welcome to the Dicebreaker podcast, episode 31. I don't know any numbers that are cool, like 31.
He's guessing a tattoo, yeah, he's getting ink done. He asked for a 13, but they drew a 31.
There it is.
There we go, Johnny saved us from ourselves. Speaking of Johnny, I am Alex Meehan, staff writer for Dicebreaker. Here is Johnny Chiodini.
Hello,
What a
I'm the head of
segue.
video for Dicebreaker, and it is nice to be here. I feel like I've not been on the podcast in approximately 400 years, so I'm excited to know what new editions of Catan there are. But I'm joined by my son, Michael Whelan.
Hello, it's me, Michael Wheels Whelan. I'm back in the pink hoodie, and it's good to be back on the pod.
Yeah, a little peek behind the curtain. We can't see that. So this
Yeah.
is news. This is news
And
to
some
Johnny
of our
and I.
listeners can't see that either, because not everyone watches the video.
There you go.
This is
There
true.
you go.
That's
That's
Which is
the
why I
podcast.
haven't mentioned my nice hoodie, which is
It's lovely.
part of the RSPB's new line of clothing.
Ooh.
So,
Ooh, it's got a
very
burb
nice
on
hoodie.
it.
it has. It's got a woodpecker on it.
All right.
So do with that what you will.
Yep.
Anyway, what's coming up on the podcast today?
Well, on the podcast, we will do our usual chat about what we have played. Before moving on to some news.
Oh,
Our usual host, the ever charming.
Ineffable?
Yeah.
ineffable. It's the only word you're allowed to use on this podcast.
Yes, the ineffable Mr. Jarvis is off enjoying himself. So away from this chaos. So we're taking over, as you can tell already from how well this is going.
You're doing great.
Johnny, would you like to tell us what you've been playing recently?
Yes. I have been playing, apparently not enough with my dog, who was just hassling me to play with her. But I've not been playing a huge amount recently because I'm temporarily between flats, so I have removed myself to a temporary living arrangement where I'm living by myself. So chances to play board games with people are slim. But I have been playing Deadlands, which is what I always play. And oh goodness me, I need to tell you about last night's session because I've been playing in this campaign with a few friends, GM'd by my friend Joe, who is my first GM. He's the one who got me into tabletop role-playing games. He's the one responsible for all of this mess. So we've been playing Deadlands for a while, and we had gone through this whole big thing where there were some hucksters, basically some magic users who were out to hurt us, and we got trapped in some form of weird dream state, and then we had to fight our way through this imaginary complex to get through a door. And we thought that would lead to a meeting with the guy who was doing this. Instead, it sent us back in time by 3 weeks to a place we'd been, and we were like, what the hell is going on? So we decided to try and find out what was happening. All hell broke loose, and there was a portal there, and a guy emerged from it with... This guy we'd met before, he emerged from it with future versions of our characters. And he was like, you gotta get out of here, everything's going to hell, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, go, 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 go. And he made us run through the portal. And then we re-emerged from this portal to find ourselves in the town that we had just left. But it was all, it had been reclaimed by nature, a bunch of the buildings had turned to rubble. And my GM just casually straightened up and said, the year is now 2097 and we are playing Deadlands Hell on Earth. And we went, okay. And he basically was like, here are the changes to your characters. And he's reworked our characters to be in line with the game. So hucksters are now psychers, for example. And the unfortunately named mad scientists from Deadlands Reloaded become junkers, I think they're called. The changes to my character were modest. My lantern became a flashlight. and my knife became a miniature chainsaw.
Oh, wow. That's an upgrade.
So I mean, not terrible. Some of
Yeah.
them have got like amazing psychic powers and that, and now I've got a mag light.
And you've turned into a space marine.
Yeah, pretty much. I've got just now covered in purity wax. But yeah, needless to say, that was quite something. I hurt my throat yelling "what" because I was so confused. But it was a good time. So this GM has previous form in doing this, but it always gets me every single time. So Joe, if you're listening, up yours. Well done.
So
that was me.
Deadlands Hell on Earth, is that a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So this was actually released. It was first released in '98, I believe, and then it got a second edition in 2012 for Deadlands Reloaded. But basically, it imagines what would happen in Deadlands if the bad guys won, because in Deadlands there are like basically there's a separate realm called the Hunting Grounds, which is full of horrible spirits that want to come through to Earth and just destroy it and make it into a, wait for it, Deadland. They have servants on Earth. These are called the Reckoners. They're basically the four horsemen of the apocalypse, hidden among like certain important figures in the world. And canonically, like according to the official history, they get defeated. But this imagines what would have happened if they won. So it is, reading up on the history, it is brutal. Like the nuclear war doesn't just happen and eviscerate the entire world, but they use a different kind of bomb called I think it's they literally call it a ghost buster bomb because it's full of ghost rock, which is this creepy mineral. And the idea is it releases tortured souls and evaporates the people in the cities without damaging the actual city. So it maintains its strategic importance. It's brutal, but yeah, it's kind of like Deadlands meets Mad Max in a way.
So
it's pretty intense.
So there's ghosts flying around, people driving around in cars, someone's playing a guitar with fire, like spewing out of it.
Yep, and I've got a flashlight.
And you're all
click.
You're all cowboys from like the oldie times.
Yes, so the way it's changed is that we remember everything that happened in the late 19th century. We remember that we went through a portal, etc., etc., etc. But we also have residual memory of what this world is and how it works. So I don't think we're getting home. Like this, we're not now starting a series of Quantum Leap where we're just trying to get back to good old 1892. We're in this world for good or ill. And currently we're stranded in the middle of nowhere. We've got no fuel and we've got no food. So it's funny, we've gone from like massive apocalyptically large storytelling back to a really granular focus, which is what I really like in role-playing games. Like when things get too big, when it's like, we've got to save the entire world, I switch off a bit because I feel like my ability to affect that is limited. But fuel and food, that's something I can get my head around.
Yeah. Well, that sounds very exciting. Maybe you can find a few lizards to eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I will stun them with my torch, and then I will cut off their heads with my miniature chainsaw. Because if you cut off the head, of course, the body will die. And then we'll eat that. I imagine the others will do something interesting. I don't know.
Delicious. Yeah, you just sat there crunching on delicious crispy lizard. And they're off, I don't know, fighting some ghosts, maybe.
Like some kind of bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Saving the world. Boo. Oh, welcome back. Did you defeat the demons? I didn't save you a lizard.
No,
I know exactly what you mean with that whole like, oh, we need to save the whole world. It's like, oh, great, it's turned into a Marvel film.
Yeah.
I'd much
Sorry,
rather make this delicious spicy marinade for these iguanas I'm going to chop on.
Well, my character's also like a 15-year-old boy.
Okay.
Who ran away from the orphanage in which he lived because he read one too many detective stories and wanted to go be a hero. And since that time, he's killed 2 people, and he feels awful about it. And he's like, I don't know what the world is anymore. I thought there were good guys and bad guys, but it turns out everyone is horrible. Am I horrible? Am I awful? Should I keep killing people? So, you know, he's not in a fit state to turn into Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel's a woman and Judah's not, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Captain America.
There you go.
Exactly.
The Iron Man.
The Man of Iron.
Big angry green. You know, the Among Us.
Yeah.
The Green Giant from the Sweet
Yeah, that's
Corn
him.
adverts,
Yeah. Ho, ho, ho. I'm going to punch you in the face. Whatever you're called. Matthew
Take that,
McConaughey.
Thanatos.
That is... Oh dear. Right,
goodness.
please let's talk to somebody else about what they've been playing.
Michael Whelan,
Hello,
please
it's
save
me.
us from this Avengers hole.
Yeah, well, so I did this sort of general thing that happens at the start of all of these podcasts where I'm looking for the pod doc and I realised that I haven't typed in what all the games that I've played, and then I realised I haven't played any games.
Excellent.
But in actual fact, I have played quite a few games because me and my partner went away for a weekend and we brought some stuff with us. So I've played some co-op games, and I also played... we did a Let's Play, Johnny, of Shining: Escape from the Overlook Hotel.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we played that. We played that game last week. I
Yeah.
completely forgot.
Yeah, it was quite good, to be fair.
Yeah, it is.
So I tried to carry it on and see what the rest of it was like.
Hey,
Yeah. We're not sponsored
I hope you
now,
might.
so I'm just gonna say it went a bit broken. Like we got like, I don't know, a couple of bits more past where we were on the Let's Play, and it just for some reason it broke for us. I don't know if it was like a pre-release copy or something. So that, like there's still some bits to work out, but for some reason it just fell down, which is a bit annoying. But I do like. Oh god, I've got like a squeaky thing next to me. I do really like the atmosphere of it. Like it's a really cool, a cool way of doing it where you like it feels like a point and click adventure game where basically if you haven't watched the Let's Play, you're right there, Johnny. If you haven't,
Sorry.
if you haven't watched the Let's Play, you have like two actions, right? So Wendy can look or use, which is 1 and 2. So you put that number in front of the thing that you want to do it with, and then it generates a code that you read out of a book, which is quite cool. It reminded me of like Sherlock or things like that. But then it gets a little bit wacky towards the sort of like Act 2 point. Because, well, I say Act 2, it has an actual Act 2. What I mean is, after the Let's Play, it gets a little bit wacky because you open up an envelope, like the box is full of envelopes, and one of them has like this, what's the acetane? It has this acetane sheet with like, you know, like see-through plastic that you used to use for the overhead projectors in school. Yeah, so it has like this acetane sheet with like bits on it, and then you have to like layer it over room cards. Because that's Danny using The Shining, and he's like seeing weird things, and it like makes codes. We could not work it out; it was genuinely quite difficult. But yeah, we also got to a point, and like it just seemed to break for some reason. Like we hit like an end state, even though nothing had happened. Like it was very strange. But yeah, so that's interesting. I hope that it gets fixed.
Yeah.
Apart from that, we played some Arkham Horror: The Living Card Game, which was recently recommended in our list of spooky horror Halloween games, which is still very, very good. And my partner likes it a lot now, so I think we might actually try and get some of the expansion boxes. Because the first box you buy is basically a starter set, which has like 3 missions in it. But you can add on expansion boxes which have new stories and new characters and new cards and all that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to try and do that, which would be quite fun. But then thirdly, so I have this game, which I briefly said this at the start of the podcast, and Johnny was like, oh, I like that game. And I think it is good. So Robinson Crusoe is a very big box co-op game.
I'm certain that some of our listeners will have just gone,
Yeah.
So
exactly where we're going with this.
Robinson Crusoe it's quite a cool concept. It's kind of like a survival game, like a video game. Like imagine something like Minecraft or what's the
there's the
Ark,
one.
something like that. Basically anything where you're like stranded and you have to make tools out of wood and all that kind of stuff. So you have that kind of system. You can craft things. You go exploring. You'll find new locations. So like, you know, say you find like a mountainous area. Now you have like rock and flint, so you can make fire and all that kind of stuff. You need to like make shelter for yourself, make weapons so you can survive against like, you know, dangerous animals. You need food, and then you have like a big objective which is dependent on the scenario that you're playing. So like there's the very, very bog standard one, which is like make a big funeral pyre, not funeral pyre, you know what I mean? Make a big bonfire.
You're already
Make a big funeral pyre because you're all gonna die is probably quite accurate. Make a big bonfire so that people can see you and get rescued. There's like a King Kong one. There's spooky one where like ghosts have like inhabited the island. You need to exorcise them and stuff. So you can do all kinds of different scenarios. Yeah, there is a cannibal one, which, yeah.
Not so fun, that one.
I'll tell you about that in a minute, actually.
Yeah, but basically, like, it's that kind of, it's called Robinson Crusoe because it's based on that kind of story. You can have Friday and a dog and all kinds of stuff. But it's a very big, complex box. Like, the rule book is hefty. And, like, just trying to, because I was coming in as a mindset of, like, I've played this before, and I think I remember how to play, so I'm just going to look up a rule if I don't remember. And then the amount of times I just had to flick through the book like for 10 minutes, being like, okay, what happens if this token is here? There's like 100 different tokens. The setup takes ages. And eventually, I think we got about 4 turns in, and I was like, I'm really sorry, I don't want to play this anymore. And it was just like...
Fair game.
Because I just wanted to get into something, and it was like these games are so heavy, and I'm sure it's really cool once you know it all, but it is not friendly to someone who just wants to jump straight in.
No, it's one of those games where you need to play it with the same people. You need to play at least sort of like once a month and keep going with it. Because when I played it last, our friend owned it, and he was so excited. He was like, "Come on, Ian, I'll teach you." Like, blah, blah, blah. And his excitement was infectious. It was brilliant. Yeah. But we were playing the slightly dodgy cannibal scenario, where cannibals will attack, and you have to sort of fight them off and destroy their encampments and all that kind of stuff. And we got through pretty much the whole scenario before we realised that my friend had missed a rule, and the cannibals were meant to attack us at night, and we just hadn't twigged that they never attacked us. So we were like, oh, we've been celebrating this victory, but actually we've just been the ruthless colonisers, just terrorising the people who live here. And we just sort of had this sober moment of reflection, like, oh no. But also, during that thing, we killed a tapir, and then we killed a gorilla. And so we decided that we'd picked up the tapir by the back legs and just hit the gorilla like we were using a steel chair in wrestling. So,
my God!
Exactly. So it is one of those games that's very complicated, but if everyone is kind of, in a good mood and sort of takes it slightly, like, irreverently, it is a really good story generator. Like,
yes,
I like it a lot. You have to know what you're getting into. And for the record, I think it's absolutely fine to play something for a bit and then stop.
Yeah.
A while ago, I played Darkness Comes Rattling with a friend, and I hadn't played it in a few years, and we opened it up and I went, oh, I never realised it's one of these games.
Yeah.
It's like, here is your character, put your heart tokens on
Yep.
it. Now everyone must go resolve these cards. We played it, and I was like, should we stop? And he went, let's do 2 more turns. I think we'll have fun for 2 more turns, and then we'll just stop. Yeah. And we did. We did 2 more turns, and we went, hey, that's enough. And we packed it away. I gave the game away. It's goodbye, Darkness Comes Rattling. But we got exactly as much as we wanted out of it. There's no point slogging through the whole thing if you're not enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
I think that there is like a sort of pressure, I think, when you've spent all this time setting something up that you're like, well, we have to finish it, right? But like, if you're not enjoying yourself, just pick something else up. And then we ended up playing through, which is not something I put on the list because we only got a bit far in before we got tired, but we ended up playing through the Fantasy Flight Warhammer Quest card game, which is basically Arkham Horror before Arkham Horror, because it's like the same format where you have your characters, you play through little pre-generated campaigns and stuff. But I think Fantasy Flight lost the Games Workshop license, so that never carried on. But that's also pretty fun, and it's basically Vermintide, but a card game, which is quite cool. But yeah, so that was my experience with Robinson Crusoe.
Nice.
It's very big. It's very heavy. I don't know if I'll ever play it again. But it is cool.
I think there should be a scenario where you just go around the island and find delicious lizards. Yeah, crisp up and have a chomp on. Exactly.
And occasionally you write a diary entry about how you thought you were going to be a hero, but actually you're worried you're turning into a horrible person. I actually did this. After Judah killed a second person, I was like, this character's getting away from under my feet. So I sat down, put some music on, sort of turned the lights down and wrote a confessional, being like, my name is Judah and I've killed 2 people, 3 people.
Did you listen to the Usher song Confession or not?
No, it didn't quite.
As is custom in the Catholic Church.
It was in the mix.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, what about you?
Yeah, Meehan, what have you been playing?
Oh, I feel like I'm going to be really disappointing.
No.
I played some Love Letter, digital version. I do have.
That is not a disappointment.
Well, it's a bit sad because I couldn't really find anyone who wanted to play anything with me.
Oh, man.
I know.
This is the pain of being a board game journalist. Like, you don't have to have friends to play video games.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially during a pandemic, it makes it very hard to do our jobs.
The global lobby of Love Letter on Steam. You can play with randoms, but it ain't exactly jumping.
No.
Like, it's not Fall Guys.
No. So I booted it up and played against the AI for a bit. That was really uninspiring because the AI is...
by myself.
Yep.
It's a lonely year. It's a lonely year.
It is a lonely year. But, yeah, and the AI are really quite... Well, they're quite stupid, to be honest. They're doing some moves that I was like, you clearly know that this other player has, like, this card. So, like, if you've not played Love Letter, it's a very simple game where essentially it's like a player elimination mixed with, like, hidden roll. So you have these two cards, and well, you start with two cards, and then you can kind of discard and pick up new ones as you go through the game. And cards have different kind of abilities to them. And you win the game by either eliminating everyone else or having the highest numbered card by the end of the game. So when all the cards
by the end
run
of the
out.
round.
The round, yeah. And so, you know, I basically completely steamrolled the two other players, AI players I was playing against in the first sort of game. Because I was just sat there and I was barely paying attention to what I was doing. Just going, yeah, I'll play that. And I'm just sat there going, this AI clearly knows this other player has a prince. Like, what else could they have? And they go to play a guard and they guess, like, a bishop or something. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm playing against rocks with faces drawn on them. Like, I might as well be, because it was about as effective as that. And then I played against... Yeah?
I was going to say, especially since the AI players don't make use of the excellent communication wheel in the Love Letter Digital Edition.
I didn't find
kind
that.
Kind of like in Hearthstone, you can tell... What?
No!
Like, you can say, like, well played, or you can say, like, ha!
Well, I'll never be saying that.
Unlike things like in say, Hearthstone, where you can be like, good move, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all insults. So it's like, ha, and ninny hammer. Honestly, it's very funny. You should give it a go.
I can't believe I missed the best feature in the game.
I know.
The best thing about those Hearthstone conversation things is that they try to make them all really positive, but then and they do that in Rocket League, I remember as well. But people just use them so sarcastically. Like, you'll completely spoon a shot into the top right corner of the map, and everyone in the chat goes, "Nice shot, nice shot, nice shot." It's like, oh my god.
Or just oops.
Yeah.
Oops. Hearthstone is devastating.
Oops. Yeah, that's a classic. I used to play a little bit of Hearthstone, but not anymore. Yeah, I played against 3 other AI, and it was a bit more challenging. They actually gave a bit of a fight because
they wheeled out the big guns.
Yeah, yeah. Like, obviously, an element to that game is what you're dealt. So sometimes there's a random element where you're just kind of, you know, screwed over sometimes.
Yeah.
But I still won. Also, Johnny and I were talking earlier. I think this has come up in conversation before. About the animations in that game. Yeah, all the cards are animated, the different characters on the cards. Some of them are quite fun. Like, the prince looks like exactly what you expect him to be doing, just smirking like an arrogant, you know...
Looking weirdly like Nigel Havers.
Yeah.
And the priest who looks like a melted Nick Cage.
Actually. That's a very accurate description of that card. Yeah, and the bishop looks like, you know, someone lurking in the corner of a pub that you really don't want to talk to, but you have to walk past them to get to the toilet. And the princess, as we've discussed before, she looks like she's got some serious breathing problems.
Oh yeah, she doesn't need a love letter, she needs medical assistance.
Yeah, her chest expands and contracts in such an exaggerated way.
This is kind of the problem with, like... I see this in a lot of games, especially in digital tabletop things, where, like, you know, it's difficult to make 2D art look alive, right? So you have to kind of animate it. And this is stuff that, like, me and Johnny will probably know quite well as well, because we do this kind of stuff for our job as well, where we have to we've got some 2D assets, need to animate them in a certain way. But when you've just got an old painting that somebody made for a card game 20 years ago, there's a limit to what you can do with it. And oh my word, you were talking about one of the animations in a game that's coming for a Let's Play, which I don't know if we can talk about here, but yeah,
no.
they get real suggestive looking.
Yeah, I'd say Wingspan does a fantastic job of it.
Oh, Wingspan's so good. I've been craving more Wingspan.
I will always want to play it, Johnny. I really like that
it's
game.
So good.
I still haven't played Wingspan. I really need to try it.
Yeah.
Oh, wheels.
We should do that. The cards are animated in such a fantastic way, where the birds kind of move and do little shakes and little pecks. That are so cute, that make
Meanwhile, you've got
Love
the
Letter
princess like a blacksmith's bellows.
Yeah, she is bursting out of her corset, heaving.
She absolutely is. As is, I mean, don't even talk about is it the Countess?
Oh yeah.
Who's her busty friend?
Yeah.
Who's meant to be the salacious gossip monger in the court, because it's set in the city-state of Tempest. It's like the version that everyone really knows is a tie-in with a different board game. But yeah.
Yep. They're heaving with the sighs and scandal of love.
I'm just going to put it out there, not to objectify the cards in Love Letter, but I'm about to. The guard is the most attractive woman in the whole deck.
She is very cute.
She's beautiful.
She's got a little button nose that I think is quite adorable. Yeah.
And she's got 4 sisters.
Yeah, all look alike.
So if you strike out with one guard,
whoa,
there's hope.
There's hope.
Goodness me!
God.
If you ever have a fantasy about Love Letter, there you go.
Please don't write in.
Please don't.
Please do not write in.
Send it to me. I'll read it.
Oh God. No.
Send your erotic
we're
love
not
letter
having an
fan
erotic
fiction.
fanfic corner of the podcast.
I
know Matt Jarvis is away, but I have to put my foot down there. That's a step too far.
Hey,
Oh,
I
God.
never said they had to do it. I'm just saying there won't be consequences.
Not for them, no.
No.
Should we?
Let's move
Should
on.
we look at some news?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, we got a bounty of exciting news to go through this week. Starting with this news about Descent: Legends of the Dark.
Yes.
Legends of the Dark.
This particular piece was written by the lovely Mr. Jarvis. I will try and do it justice. I'm aware of Descent: Legend of the Dark because it was kind of accidentally leaked a while ago by a book that was based on it on Amazon. And then,
that's right. The description was with this amazing forthcoming board game.
Yeah, and then Fantasy Vote were like, oops. And so eventually...
You didn't see nothing.
Yeah, no. They did acknowledge it. Well, they didn't acknowledge that, but they did acknowledge the existence of the game and kind of announced it officially. And now they've revealed more details about it. So for people who don't know, the original Descent, Journeys in the Dark, is a dungeon crawler that's quite popular. Yeah, it's what you expect. You sort of go into a dungeon and you fight some monsters and you've got different abilities. I think there's a progression element to it as well as you go through each of the missions.
It's kind of like a sort of RPG in a box kind of thing, isn't it? Where it's it's very reminiscent of Hero Quest and stuff like that. But it was massive for a long time. There are about 1 million different expansions for it. There's one where you can have a boat that you use in between your journeys and stuff, and use it to travel between the other boxes you're playing. And you could spend an entire mortgage worth of money on boxes for this game.
Tis the way with these miniature style games.
Yeah.
But this new game, talking of cost, is priced at $174.95.
Jeez. I love that they still decided to do a $174.99. Oh yeah, no, that extra cent that you've saved me there, really.
Yeah.
$175? Yeah. Absolutely not. $174.99.
Well now.
Get my wallet.
I would say it's 95 actually. So you're saving, what, 5 cents?
Oh, 5 cents. Well, Meehan, why are we doing a podcast when I could be out buying Descent Legends of the Dark?
That in pounds is about £133. And it's set to release in the second quarter of next year. There's quite a few details about the game that have been revealed. Obviously, it's co-op dungeon crawling. There will be some 3D terrain included in the box, along with obviously some miniatures. As classic. There'll be 16 missions in the campaign, and it's set in the fantasy setting of Terranoff, which there's also a game called Heroes of Terranoff.
Yeah, this is kind of like Fantasy Flight's own IP, isn't? Where it's like their own sort of fantasy world. Which I've got the hiccups. I think they've done quite a few things in this sort of like realm.
The realm.
But I think what's quite interesting about this one, correct me if I'm wrong, Meehan, is that because the previous
I will correct
version, you will. The previous version of this game was one person plays like a dungeon master style figure that leads all the monsters, and then the rest play the heroes. Whereas this is now like with an assisted app, right?
Yes, I believe there is a companion app. I can neither confirm nor deny the element of controlling the monsters in the previous game, because I've not actually played it.
So I think it basically is the same format as what's the Star Wars Fantasy Flight dungeon crawler?
You are talking about the Star Wars one. Are you talking about the Lord of the Rings one, Journeys through Middle Earth?
Not Journeys Middle Earth, which is all app. There's a Star Wars Fantasy Flight Imperial Assault. That's the one. Thank you.
It's all
that's the same format. Yeah, that's the same format where it's like you can either have one player play as like a dungeon master style figure who controls all the monsters and stuff and does all the in between bits and basically plays the Empire. Or I think later on they released like a sort of a variant where it was pure co-op with an app. So I think this is like learnings from their sort of Mansions of Madness style and Journeys in Middle Earth. Like they're big into their apps now, Fantasy Flight. So I think that's kind of where they're going with this one.
I've heard really good things about the Mansions of Madness app. So
I can't imagine who from.
Yeah, who could
it be?
It also says in this wonderful news piece that this core game is only covering the first act of a campaign called Blood and Flame. The second and third acts will be released as expansions. There are no dates or prices for those as of yet. So hey, expect Descent content is descending to the world.
I guess that'll cost you $299.80.
Again, who knows? But hey, people really like that Descent, so I'm sure there's plenty of people excited for this. For more news on Descent, be sure to come to Dicebreaker.com. Moving on to something perhaps a little less ambitious. Johnny mentioned Catan earlier, didn't you, Johnny?
Yes, I did.
Well, this isn't a new version of the game, but it is related to the Catan brand, as it were. There is a line of, quote, fashionable footwear.
Yeah. Trina's made of brick.
Yeah. Once again,
I can't wait.
This snooze piece is written by Mr. Jarvis.
Did you just call it a snooze piece?
Ooh.
Oof.
Doing Matt Jarvis dirty while he's away.
You are stirring the pot, Mr. Whelan. I never said such a thing. It's a very accurate and, dare I say, somewhat amusing news piece, which sees the funny side of shoes that look like various resources. There's apparently they're going to be coming out next year in the US. I don't know whether they're coming over to the older UK or not. But yeah, I can't see any. I don't know if they've released any images of them yet, but I'm sure they'll look snazzy.
Does say here that there's a Hollywood movie in the works based on Catan as well. What is going on with that brand? I I don't think they have any idea what to do with this thing.
I mean,
just milking it with the sweet milk.
Yeah, but like,
it's got very colonialist overtones.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want a Catan.
I don't think anyone
film.
does, though.
The shoes, genuinely, if the shoes are nice, I might buy them as a fun joke. Like, well, not as a fun joke, obviously to wear on my feet. But like, if they had trainers that look nice anyway, and very few people are going to get it, but the people who are like, are those Settlers of Catan shoes?
And you're like,
yeah. You know you're cool then.
Yeah, why not?
100%
Why not?
on board. Because, we joke about Catan a lot and how ubiquitous it is, but I do have, it's got a little place in my heart. Because it's a giggle. But a movie, I'm alright. I'm okay. Like, unless it's following the robber around. And at the end, it's just it pulls out like the Godfather, but he's in an office just full of like stolen logs and sheep. It's just like there. It's like, yes, I am a good robber
on the day of the dice roll.
Yeah, it'll probably be starring like Tom Holland or something, and there'll be people who are in high school, but suddenly they find themselves sort of island full of sheep.
God, I didn't even imagine that, like a Jumanji style.
Yeah, no, I'm
been
calling
sucked
it.
in.
That's what it is.
Oh
Zac
no.
Efron is a humble shepherd.
Yep.
Who now finds himself having to settle Catan.
The king of this newfound realm is played by Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
They'd be lucky.
To be honest, now we're making a better film than it will be.
Yeah,
probably.
that's true. We're giving them too much credit here. But it does seem like as a general thing, like I don't think anyone who is on like the publishing team for Catan expected Catan to be this big. And now they're like, oh, what do you do when you've got lightning in a bottle? Make a movie. It's like, no, calm down, everyone.
I mean, Catan is like, by board game standards, quite old now. Like,
Yeah.
it is one of the quote modern classics, but still,
95.
it's getting on a bit. What else can you do apart from make a film with potentially Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in it, maybe? Or
that's it. That's the dream. That's the dream casting. Is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? It's like he's logging in a forest and he's like,
Yeah.
I need a sheep.
And then you cast Willem Dafoe as a sheep.
Yes.
Willem Dafoe as a sheep,
And his only lines are just bear.
Yeah, but he's somehow manages to communicate that he's on a mission from God to build the longest road.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm something of a carpenter myself.
There's an amusing scene where they have to go to a port to try and trade favourably for goods. And it's Danny DeVito.
Yes! And Arnold Schwarzenegger is also there.
Yeah.
He's the governor of Catan, obviously.
You can have this brick, but you're going to have to give me 3 wheat.
I won't take no for an answer.
And then Danny DeVito just comically falls over, because that's what he does.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has obviously already starred in a tabletop production, i.e. the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh my goodness. No one understands that apart from maybe 2 people.
To the 2 people who do, a big shout out to you.
Big shout out to you. Yeah, this is going off the rails.
Next.
Yeah, I'll be sending a script soon. Costs about £1 million.
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap for a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
We'll
do a first treatment for $1 million.
That might get you 5 minutes of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Okay, let's move on to this next news feed. Concordia, which seems to be a fairly well-liked game. Again, I've not played it, but it's a game about sort of running your own Roman dynasty back in ye olde times. That's how we measure history here. It's how many ye oldies you've got in the sentence.
You've got Yodi, Yodi.
And then you're just yodeling.
Yeah, there's a digital board game version coming out, done by the people at Akram Digital. We've already done adaptations of Charterstone and 8 Minute Empire, along with Mobo Studio. The game is set to come out in Q3. And for anyone...
really sorry about my
That's
dog,
fine. I'm just coasting through it. For anyone who doesn't know how Concordia works, you're kind of establishing trade networks across various colonies.
Colonies?
That's the one. What Will said.
A bunch of Connollys, that's a bunch of great lads from Ireland.
You're gathering the usual wealth and power, etc., etc. Because you want to please the gods. Because that's all that anyone wants to do, really.
Absolutely. I, for one.
Definitely. So if you want to play Concordia online with your friends, or even against an AI opponent, because you've got no friends, you can do so later next year. There's not a retail price for it yet, so...
It looks about as ugly as the original game.
Will swinging.
I'm looking at the screenshot and already my head hurts. But I think that's one of the problems with digital adaptions. It's like there's so much information that you need to have on screen at once.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot to take in.
Especially games like this that are like built and that sort of thing.
But I have heard that despite its looks, Concordia is a really good game.
Yeah,
like,
people
really
seem
good.
to really like it. It's got some nice cover art. From what I remember. Looking at it. Alright. I've seen a lot worse Wills.
Well,
Holy
but
hell,
your favourite is the bear one, so...
Baron Park!
Baron Park.
Don't you dare say a word against Baron Park on this podcast, Wills. I swear. I swear to God. So there you go. Concordia Digital. It's on its way. Unless anyone else has anything else to say, we can move on to this next news piece.
Not particularly.
Next.
Next! Okay. Urban Shadows, which is a fantasy RPG from Magpie, who've done things like Bluebeard's Bride and Masks: A New Generation, is getting a second edition. It's on Kickstarter right now. Until November the 19th. This was written by me, by the way. Yeah, as you can tell.
An Alex Meehan special.
Yeah, an Alex Meehan special. This RPG is basically a supernatural, modern style world where sort of people are vampires and werewolves, or mayhaps immortal, and the immortal attempting to live in this world of horrors. And it's kind of inspired by... Well, the second edition is inspired by things like the Dresden Files or The Wire or other such pieces of media. And this second edition looks to add some new interesting elements, like city hubs that are kind of based around some of the different types of sort of characters you can be. So like vampires or fae creatures or whatever. And they're also reworking some of the playbooks and adding 2 new playbooks called The Imp and the Sworn.
The Imp and the Sworn?
Indeed. It was co-designed by Mark Diaz-Truman, who created Cartel, which is an RPG kind of based around the Mexican drug trade, and Marissa Kelly, who I think worked on Bluebeard's Bride, which I'm fascinated by. I want to play really bad. Maybe I'll get my hands on that. So you can go on to Kickstarter right now to see the second edition, and you can get a physical copy for about $39/£30, and you can even get PDF versions for just £15.
And as always, more information available on Dicebreaker.com.
Have any of you heard of Urban Shadows, or is this
not in the slightest? I saw that you said it's John Wick inspired.
Yeah, that's what they said on the Kickstarter. Technically, the first edition came out before John Wick, but this second edition, they definitely cite that.
You could say that John Wick is actually Urban Shadows inspired.
Hey,
post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Keanu Reeves is a cool person. Maybe they've, maybe he's had a game of Urban Shadows. You don't know.
How about
Moving
Medici Reformation?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, Meehan.
Yeah, I can do that. I also wrote this one. Yeah, so Medici is a pretty well-liked auction game by guess who? It's Reiner Knizia again.
Yay! Someone press the Reiner Knizia buzzer.
Yep.
I don't know. That's how I'd have it sound.
I've actually
in charge of
I've
the
actually,
Reiner Knizia button.
yeah, I've actually had a chat with him, so
Yeah.
yeah, he seems nice.
Good.
Yeah, there is it's a bit confusing as tabletop can be. It's sort of a remake / new version of the game called Medici Reformation, which looks to be sort of bringing most of the elements of the old game over and then adding some new aspects to it. So in the old game, you'd kind of compete with the other players to sort of gather a monopoly over certain sort of resources that you could barter for. And in this new version, you'll be arranging them in the hulls of your ships. And you can get sort of extra points for sort of arranging them in particular rows and columns. If you're into that sort of thing.
Who isn't?
Yeah. They also talk about Martin Luther is involved somehow. The religious figure. It's based around the Medici family of the Renaissance era. So there's some interesting historical stuff with that, I guess. The Kickstarter campaign is set to be launched sometime next year. We don't know how much the pledge amounts are going to be. But yeah, there you go.
I have to say, Reiner Knizia has obviously made quite a lot of very good games.
Yes.
And it is very cool to see games that he made in like the 80s and 90s being reprinted with nice art. Like I've got Ra on my shelf, which is very cool. It's like a sort of ancient Egyptian auction game. And it's just really pretty now that it's been, revamped by said man. Or
yeah,
the
original version of Medici, I saw it, is hideous. I will say. It's really awful.
I'm going to Google it now.
It has actually been remade already, technically, in a new version, which has much better art on the front cover. To the point where I was kind of looking at the art and going, oh, that man on the front is very handsome. This is what I do these days now. I'm just sat here, like...
Thirsting over board game boxman.
Yeah.
Meehan's just playing a constant game of bonk, marry, kill with all of the people on the front of board game covers.
Yeah.
You gotta entertain yourself somehow these days.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Will, did you find it?
I did. Yeah, it's it's something.
It really is awful. I don't know what this new version is going to look like, but if it's anything like the other edition that's come out, it should be pretty good. So, yeah, look for that on Kickstarter sometime next year. Let's move on to something I know we're all excited about.
Yes, all of us.
Yeah, I wrote this one as well. It's been announced that Critical Role, the actual play series, has its own tabletop publisher called Darrington Press. It's looking to release 4 games next year. The company itself is headed up by Ivan Van Norman, who is involved with Hunters Entertainment. That's the studio behind Alice is Missing, which Wills is a fan of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the games are based off the world of Critical Role itself. The first one is called Ukatoa, which is a reference to one of the kind of gods-ish in the second season. It's a co-op game where you're kind of fighting to keep your ship afloat while this Leviathan is attacking you. So it's kind of Critical Role adjacent. A more sort of direct one is called Critical Role Adventures, which has been described as a legacy-style game where you play characters of Vox Machina, which is from the first season of Critical Role. There's also a co-op card game called Guardians of Matrimonia, which is more sort of vaguely fantasy-themed, and a tabletop role-playing game called Syndicult, which is actually designed by Matthew Mercer, who is the Dungeon Breaker for Critical Role, and Dungeon Breaker?
The Dungeon Breaker for Critical Role. You mean the Games Master?
The Dungeon Master, yeah, for Critical Role. And he's a voice actor as well. And it's looking to be sort of a magical mobster style RPG, which is interesting.
I'm very glad it's not just a vehicle for pumping out endless Critical Role stuff.
Yeah, no, there is other
if Matt
stuff.
Is making an RPG, I am actually intrigued by that. Like, I want to know about it. When I first saw this headline, I'm not going to lie, I just kind of rolled my eyes.
Yeah.
Critically, partly because I was just worried that it was going to be, just endless sort of like cynical reskin cash grab games. But I mean, this actually looks like it's got teeth, which is nice. And 4 games in a year, like that's a decent number. They're not flooding the market.
No. I think it seems to be. I think it looks like they're kind of testing the waters, as it were, initially, because obviously Critical Role as a brand is quite popular. So they've already got that, but whether obviously people, because I think a lot of people just watch it and they don't even necessarily play like RPGs.
True.
So with this, they maybe can't guarantee that they'll get people to buy it, but I mean, looking at the layout, which is not final, of Ukatoa, the artwork is
pretty.
Really nice. Yeah. And it sounds interesting, and again, I'd say the only game on this list which is directly kind of related to Critical Role is the Critical Role Adventures, which is exactly what I expected from this kind of publisher. The rest are kind of either adjacent or not even connected to it. And, Matthew Mercer, it looks like only to be designing one of the game. The rest of them have completely other designers who are, as I know, not directly connected to Critical Role. So
fair play to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they've been getting involved in a lot of different things. So, obviously they've got the actual play series. They've got an animated series coming out, which I'm not really that fussed by. And they've also recently set up a non-for-profit organisation called Critical Role Foundation. So they're sort of putting their fingers in all sorts of pies. But
they're
we'll
going to have some very dirty fingers. Covered in
very
cherries
hot,
and apples
steaming,
and custard.
Yep. All in the same pie. So,
it's like a Bedfordshire clanger.
Yeah. Oh, I love a Bedfordshire clanger.
That's not something you hear every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep an eye on some of those games, I'm sure, and see what they're like. But hey, yeah, it's exciting that they're not just pumping out only Critical Role based stuff. So let us.
Oh, and also, for the sake of journalistic integrity, we do have to mention that Meehan does have a poster of Matt Mercer above her bed, so we need to.
I'm looking above my bed right now, unless this is an invisible poster or has been.
Oh damn it! I forgot to put it up.
That is a lie. Okay, last piece of news here. This one's fresh off the presses. There is a game called Dire Alliance Horror, which was co-created by the makers of Undaunted Normandy and North Africa. That's Trevor Benjamin and David Thompson. It was also co-created by Brady and Adam Sadler, who have worked on Warhammer: The Adventure card game.
Oh, well then.
Yeah.
It's all coming full circle.
Yeah, and this Dire Alliance horror game sounds quite similar to how Undaunted works, to be honest. There is a map with, you've got tokens representing your different units on it, and you can kind of move them and perform actions by playing cards. So it is a deck building game with kind of strategy elements to it. And there are different objectives that you need to kind of fulfill. There are 2 modes in the game. There's a battle mode where it's two players sort of going against each other trying to compete to complete these objectives. And there's a co-op mode called raid mode, where up to 4 players can sort of work together to defeat an AI opponent.
Cool.
Which, we haven't seen Undaunted, as far as I know.
No.
This is also horror themed, if you didn't catch that.
Yeah, it didn't give it away very easily, did it?
Yeah.
Really buried the lead on that one.
So you can choose like a different faction and a different leader to combine to make your kind of your army, as it were, and they're all kind of based on classic horror creatures and characters. So one of the ones I've included here in the article is the Shroud, which is formed of different vampires. Vampire. Yeah, there's even a ghosty one. And then you can kind of combine that with a different leader, and they'll give you different abilities and things like that. So yeah, it looks interesting. Obviously, there's a miniatures element to it. Because this is a modern board game on Kickstarter.
Of course.
The core edition itself doesn't come with miniatures, but you can buy a pack of miniatures along with it separately, which aren't essential to the game, but they're there if you want them.
The miniatures aren't essential to the game, Meehan. That doesn't sound right.
You know what? Like, I'm gonna sort of stick my hand
Here we
in
go.
here. I am at least glad that the games have seen, like, they've little plastic clips, and the cardboard standees have mostly died a death, because I hate those.
I also hate entirely grey miniatures that you clip into like coloured bases. Not a fan of those.
Yeah.
Not a fan of those at all.
In this game, it looks like the core version just comes with little tokens that you lay down, which is fine. It's on Kickstarter right now until November the 17th, with the core copy costing about $50, which is £39. Yeah, estimated to come out around November of next year. So
I mean, I'm intrigued, because like I know people absolutely rave about Undaunted.
yeah, I like it. It's good.
It is really
But
good. Yeah, it's really good.
World War II is such a turn off for me.
Yeah.
I just do not care.
What about
Like,
spooks, Johnny?
Love a spook.
Spooks.
Love a spook.
Bloody love a spook. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
shove someone's
So-
head in a deep fat fryer. Love the spooks.
Yeah, we're not
That
talking.
is a British TV reference.
Yeah, we're not talking about the television show. Spooks.
That's possibly a deeper cut than a Bedfordshire clanger.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Bedfordshire Clangers, considering it's from one county in England as opposed to broadcast across the entire nation.
Yeah, and I don't even know all the counties in England, so there you go.
I know the 3 counties, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. That's
Bad tarts and bucks.
the birthplace of Dicebreaker.
Of Dicebreaker.
Yeah, so there you go. It's also the first in a series of games that are meant to be compatible with one another. So presumably this one is horror themed. There may or may not be others coming out that might have different themes.
World War II.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
maybe
see.
there'll be a World War II one for you, Johnny.
The
For
circus.
example, Dire Alliance : anything else. So Dire Alliance drama,
Yeah.
Dire Alliance romantic comedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, you've got Hugh Grant going up against.
You've got Hugh Grant. We
Yeah.
know that. That one's a
Who's
good
that?
one.
Who's that one in Pride and Prejudice?
Oh,
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth.
There, yeah, they can fight each other.
You're just describing Bridget Jones' Diary, in which they have a fist fight.
This is
Yeah,
true.
Dire Alliance, Bridget Jones' Diary.
Bridget
Yeah,
Jones' Diary.
That's the next. That's the next.
That's the next one coming up. That's not been confirmed, obviously, but keep your ears.
Letters.
We've got some messages.
Yeah. Thank you for sending in these lovely messages. You can send us a question at Twitter at Join Dicebreaker. You can also send us a question to our email address info@dicebreaker.com.
Ask us what a Bedfordshire clanger is.
Yeah.
Travis will have a great time telling you all about it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, he's probably going to listen to this podcast, isn't he?
He's from Hertfordshire, though, I'm afraid.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
right. Never mind then.
The Bedfordshire boys will take that one on. Don't worry about it.
Not a Bedfordshire boy.
All right, boy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Emails.
Okay.
Well, go on then, Johnny. Why don't you read the first question?
Yeah, come on, Johnny. Read this first question.
Hi, Dicebreakers. I saw Dead of Winter
Is
make
that
an
it?
appearance in a
Hello. Moving on.
I saw Dead of Winter make an appearance in a recent video, and I was reminded of your earlier podcast where you were discussing ditching the optional traitor mechanic, ensuring there will always be one in the game. I found that interesting, as I personally like not being sure if there is a traitor or not. Some members of the team still look real shady as they try to complete their secret objectives, even if they are on your side. One of the best games I played had no traitor at all, with my group growing in suspicion of each other to the point where we tore ourselves apart and lost what should have been an easy game. The moment we realised we were all innocent cracked us up, though this may say more about trust issues in my friend group than it does on that mechanic being good or not. I'm not quite arrogant enough to assume I've changed minds here, but I'm curious if you can think of a time someone has changed your opinion on a game mechanic. Failing that, is there a popular opinion out there that you think needs a second look? Thanks for what you do, guys. Being fairly new to the world of tabletop, you've done a lot to guide me toward the good stuff.
Yeah.
Dan French.
Thanks,
Thank you, Dan
Dan.
French.
Yeah.
That's a lovely email.
Yeah, I will just quickly say before we get to the question, that's 100% like a house rule that I prefer. And whilst I get, like, I love the concept of having an optional traitor where you're like, ooh, but what if we're all good? I tend to find with most of the games that I've played, you kind of trigger from the fact that nothing like has been intentionally sabotaged. Eventually you're just like, I don't think there's a traitor, and it always feels a bit deflating at the end. I think
Anticlimactic,
yeah. But that's my personal opinion, so maybe I've changed your mind, Dan, who knows. But we'll get to the question.
Yes.
What do you reckon, Johnny?
A mechanic that someone's changed my mind on.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I have definitely had like when I first started learning board games, someone tried to teach me Dominion, but they weren't great at the teach, which made me think it was very dull. And I was like, I don't get this. And like for a long time, I was like, oh, I don't want to play a Dominion-like game. And then it took someone to be like, no, like deck building is amazing. Like just sit down and play this goddamn game because deck building is great. And I was like, oh no, yeah, deck building's really good. I've just been like unfairly dismissive of it.
I would say probably for me it's actually games that are super adversarial. I used to struggle with them because like I'm quite an anxious person. I like to be liked. Where, if someone doesn't like me, then it sort of really gets under my skin. So when I'm playing something where you're super out to get other people, I feel bad. I feel like I'm like doing them dirty. So like for example, when I first started playing Doomtown, the CCG I can't shut up about, but, like if I was absolutely stomping someone, I'd feel really guilty, or I wouldn't take chances to go and mess them up because I was like, well, there's no way they'll stop me, and that just feels unfair. Whereas, I learned, I was like, that's just the nature of the game. Sometimes you have an opportunity to take someone out, and you absolutely take it. So I think being comfortable with going for other players and taking them out of a game is something I really didn't used to like, and I kind of felt like it was bad form. But now I'll take your home system in Twilight Imperium if you so much as look at me wrong.
Well,
You heard.
that's a threat.
You heard. How about you, Min?
Oh, let's think. I can't think of a hugely specific example. I can think of like for example, my general feeling on certain kinds of board games. So I used to be a little bit, like Johnny, I used to be a little bit unsure about getting into certain games because of my own like feelings around like what you have to do in them. So, for example, big chunky games where you're managing a lot of stuff, like now I can't think of any, like Scythe,
Right.
for example. I used to just not want to go near them because I was convinced that I would suck at them and not be very good, and then other people would point at me and laugh and go, "Ha ha, you're an idiot."
That's what happens to me whenever I play board games.
And I had to just essentially wean myself onto playing these kind of games and just getting used to the idea of learning how to play them, because to be honest, games like Scythe you're not meant to just be good at them as soon as you've played it. Like it's the kind of game that you kind of have to work at, and then you gradually learn how it works, and then you will eventually get good, sort of, in my experience. There's also games that I feel like I need to give a second look that I maybe wasn't keen on initially. So like Fury of Dracula, for example, is a game that the first time I played it, I was really bored because it went on forever. And I was one of the hunters, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and Dracula was just like optimizing every single move. So
Classic Dracula.
yeah, so it just meant that we didn't really have much of a chance in finding them, and it was just kind of a very uninspiring experience. But I think maybe I need to give that game another look.
Yeah, I think an excessive playtime is the death knell for so many games I think you'd otherwise enjoy. I played Inish a while ago, and I love Inish. It was brilliant.
Really good.
We were playing it. I was like, how have I never played this before? This is wonderful. And then there was a point where one guy was on the verge of winning, and I was like, well, if I do this, I can absolutely take his legs out from under him. And one of my friends was very much like, you should just let him win, though. And I was like, why? It's like, because then the game will be over. It's like, but that's stupid. I have the ability to stop this, and I'm going to. And then we played for another hour, and by the end, everyone was a bit like, you really screwed the evening, Johnny.
Oh.
Because it had gone on a bit too long. But at the same time, like, I didn't feel like taking a dive.
Yeah,
no. So it's funny, but like, I definitely did ruin that. I put us through an hour of pain that then meant that everyone felt like a little bit disappointed by Inish, or rather the evening than not. So what I'm saying is I'm a monster. But
I'm not.
But it did make me realise that making people do a thing for much longer than they want to do it is a way to stop them having fun.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Yeah. No, it was a surprise to me as well, but I accept it now. Sorry, Paul, if you're listening, sorry I didn't let you win at Inish.
It is a bit of a kingmaker game, Inish, to be fair.
It is, yeah.
I'm not saying I put acid in your drink, but...
Well, moving on.
Wills, would you like to read this next question?
I would love to,
From
Meehan.
Martin.
I'd absolutely love to. From Martin.
Yeah.
Okay, hello Dicebreaker team. I'm a relatively fresh GM that recently managed to get a group together to play some tabletop role-playing games with, open brackets, mostly after having been inspired by Johnny DMing for Rock's Venture and Dungeon Breaker, close brackets. Since I had no experience myself, and neither did most of my players, we started out with Quest to test the waters, so to speak, and we're having a great time with it. However, I'm starting to want a more complex game to play. We're already constantly homebrewing new rules for Quest to give the system more depth. Do you know of or recommend any tabletop RPGs that are more complex than Quest, but less so than, say, D&D? The theme I'm going for is mainly standard fantasy. Sincerely, Martin Wagner. Thank you very much for the or Wagner, I believe, is the composer, so I'm going to assume that that's how you pronounce it. Right, okay.
Okay.
So,
options.
yeah.
Savage Worlds is...
There's a lot,
just a
basically.
core system, that it can be applied to a whole bunch of games. Like, it runs all sorts, like Deadlands, like Achtung Cthulhu, This is really skipping, like really doing my head in, not being able to think of more Savage Worlds.
These questions can,
fantasy ones.
yeah, these questions can be difficult because you when you get put on the spot, your brain just shuts down. You're like, all games. I don't know the name of any games.
Let's see, fantasy, Savage Worlds.
Yeah, Wheels.
Well, I think the problem is I tend to veer away from standard fantasy because I think I've gotten a bit tired of it because it's such a prevalent thing in board games. But yeah, there are certainly ones out there that will give you
Band of Blades.
Band of Blades.
Band of Blades is really good.
It works on the same. It's a Forge in the Dark game, so it works on the same system as Blades in the Dark, which is meant to be very streamlined and player focused,
modular as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Band of Blades, a campaign is about 12 sessions, but it's super rewarding. There's really good stuff for character growth, and you get to pick powers. So it's a bit like Quest, where you really feel like you have a build, where you're like, hey, here I am, like this is what I do, here comes the thing that I do. It's different from Quest in that some characters will be better at rolling certain things than others. However, it's like Quest in that everyone has the same health pool. So there are enough similarities. And once you've got your head around it, I think that would be a really rewarding transition.
Yeah.
I think Band of Blades is wonderful. It really is good.
Yep. I would say a lot of games that are based on Powered by the Apocalypse, which there are quite a few.
Pubta.
Yep. Including Root.
Yeah.
The role-playing game, which technically isn't out yet. But there is a starter you can download for free.
And it's free as well, which is very handy.
Which you can try out. And we had a great time with that, didn't we, Will?
Yeah, we did. So I would recommend that one, actually. It's Powered by the Apocalypse is like... It's weird because you say it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, but there are so many out there now and it's evolved so much that if you play the original system, it doesn't feel anything like most of the modern RPGs that it's based on, that are based on it, rather. But yeah, so Powered by the Apocalypse is a sort of... I think, it's a jump up from Quest in complexity, but without being too complex. I will say that Powered by the Apocalypse games tend to favour... they're not... at least, the original game is built in a way where it doesn't favour that sort of, we are a group and we move through things all in real time. It's more sort of like a TV show where you'll jump from scene to scene kind of thing, which can be a little bit jarring if you're not used to it. It's not one of my favourite systems. I've not really made much of a secret about that on this podcast, but I do think it is, it's very easy to adapt into new settings, so you can find all kinds of different versions of it that you'll enjoy. There was one called Dungeon World, which I would ask you to avoid because the creator's a bit of a creep. But apart from that, there's definitely going to be some fantasy stuff out there in that system that you'll probably enjoy. I think it's a really good shout, man.
Okay, shall I do this next question?
Do
Please.
I've got to not butcher this name now. At Raven Abunanzin?
Yeah.
Abunanzin.
Asks, with Halloween close, what spooky board games or pen and paper games can you recommend for a solo player?
Now hold on a minute.
Love the podcast. Keep up the good work.
Firstly, we banged on about Set a Watch in the past, so Set a Watch, it's great.
Yeah.
Love Set a Watch. I was actually thinking I want to go get that from the office and play it again. I miss it.
I want it. I
thought you already had your own one.
No, it's the office one, and I the minute lockdown started, I was like, oh god damn it, I didn't take Set a Watch. I was like, the minute we're back in the office, it's mine.
Well, that'll be, what, 4 years from now, so that's fine.
I'm just gonna buy Set a Watch.
Yeah, just do it, mate. Well, there's a new standalone expansion.
He said, happy to save the money himself.
Yeah, there's a new standalone expansion that's launching on Kickstarter soon as well.
Well, it's already on.
Oh no, sorry. It's late pledges now, isn't it?
Yeah,
jeez, it's already been funded.
Exactly. Something of the coin, I think.
Brotherhood of the Coin or something.
Yeah,
something like that. There's a merchant, basically.
Yeah. And there's some new characters.
Yeah.
In the 1,000-Year Vampire, isn't that a solo?
Yes.
I was going to wait until we did the what's coming up next, but
sorry.
if you're watching this...
Happened.
Yeah, if you're watching this on Friday, yesterday we would have done a live stream which is today. Myself and Johnny are going to be playing 1,000-Year-Old Vampire on the stream with the chat choosing what happens next. So that's going to be very interesting. So give that a watch if you like. But 1,000-Year-Old Vampire recently featured on our list of the most beautiful RPGs ever made. It is one of the most gorgeous books ever created. It's quite spenny because it's or expensive, sorry, if you're not familiar with that term. It's quite expensive because it's a solo sort of indie publisher who's like printing on demand, so like they can run you up a bit, but it's gorgeous, and you can get a PDF for it, of course. I'd also recommend The Machine, which is on our list of solo RPGs, which I know Johnny's a big fan of.
It's also on our list of horror RPGs.
Yeah, there you go, on Dicebreaker.com. But there's all sorts of spooky solo RPGs if you want that. As for board games, we did a video list of solo board games for Valentine's, where Mr. Motivator Johnny Chiodini gives you a nice little pep talk at the start, where we recommended Arkham Horror, the living card game, because you can play that solo as well as with 2 players. So that's also a very good shout. But I'm sure these two fine folks will have some good recce's as well.
Well,
or have I exhausted them all?
Yes.
I mean, I believe you can play the new Escape the Dark Sector solo.
Yes, I think you can.
And I gave that
and Castle, right?
a pretty good review. I've not played it solo, so I don't know how it plays out. But
to be honest, you can play any co-op game solo. So if you like the look of a spooky co-op game, get it, because you can play anything solo that's co-op.
Yeah. To be honest, I mean, you can control multiple characters in that game.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so you can balance it yourself that way. I mean, the game is difficult anyway, regardless of, to be honest, how many characters you have. So yeah, maybe give Escape the Dark Sector a go. I liked it. It's spooky.
I thought it was good.
I thought it was good. Shall we do one more question?
Yeah. From Oliver Gerlach. Or Gerlach.
Would you like to read it out, Will?
Yeah, I will. There are a lot of historical themes used in games, but which period do you feel is really underrepresented and you'd like to see more often? Johnny Chiodini has the floor.
Yeah.
Underrepresented and I'd like to see more often. Underrepresented and I'd like to see.
I mean, to be honest, to give you some more time, Johnny, I would like to see not necessarily time periods, but parts of the world which are underrepresented. Everything is Western, medieval, Renaissance, like American. It's incredibly Eurocentric. I would
Japanese.
love to see, or
Japanese.
I would love to see some cultures from different parts of the world being represented and being like written and designed by people from that part of the world as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like, I'm a white designer for America and I'm going to make a game about China, and it's like, okay, but you should get someone from China involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
so I'd love that, more of that, please.
Yeah, maybe like Southeast Asia or like Australian indigenous or anything that
Maori, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So many amazing, cool cultures in the rest of the world that just don't get talked about ever. And apart from us, like, I've made a worker placement game set in this world, and I'm a white man from Germany.
Yeah, that's classic.
I would like to see more games that try and teach you about a period that was like difficult for our country. And I feel like actually Poland has some very good like examples on this front. Like, so there's a Polish game called Kalejka, which means queue, which was partly funded by the Polish government, and it is a game where you're in communist Poland and you're trying to do your weekly shopping to feed your family. But not all shops get stock every day, and the stock they do have is limited, and it's a worker placement game where you put your meeples into queues to try and get everything on your shopping list in order to win. And then you have cards that are like, you've borrowed a baby, or you're friends with somebody in, you know, the local government to move you up the queue and all that kind of stuff. But it also comes with this book that teaches you all about what it was actually like living in communist Poland, and all of the items you're trying to get are actual products from that era. And it's amazing. It's a really good insight into sort of like the difficulties and the seemingly arbitrary nature of goods being available in communist Poland. Also, in Detective, a modern crime board game, there's a through line between all of the quests, and at various points in the game, it will mention something, and there's a little symbol that says, "Please look this up online and read about it." So just so you've got the background information, and a lot of it is to do with Poland and sort of the period just after the war, and it's really like it provides useful backgrounds to a core gameplay experience that is really, really fun, but you also learn a lot. And I would love more stuff like that, where it's just like you're playing a game, you're having a good time, but you're also just discovering what it was like to be in, you know, this regime, or that one, you know. Yeah, I think that would be like just really cool.
I
will say quickly, actually, like, sorry, Meehan, you carry on before I jump in.
That's right. I was just say I have a few different responses to this. So firstly, I think a lot of the problem is that a lot of these historical type games are things like worker placement or very heavy Eurocentric games, which mean that accurately depicting the time period, particularly from the eyes of people who were in a minority or were repressed, is very difficult, because obviously they're designed to be based purely on you can win this by being the person who's best at strategy. And if you, you know, in order to actually present, you know, a realistic interpretation of these periods and the kind of experience that people had, you would have to make that inevitably, you know, unfair, because, you know, the reality is a lot of people, you know, strategy doesn't really come into it. It's just circumstance, or like if you're being repressed, there's not a huge amount that you can do about it that could be represented by like a work and placement game or things like that. So often they come from the perspective of people, you know, in a privileged position, such as like nobles or merchants or things like that, and that's fine, but it's not very inspiring if you actually want to be like, oh, this is what the period was like. And I think games like Detective and role-playing games are a much better way at looking at these particular historical periods, because they allow people to actually explore the world and the story within them and the people within them and the culture within them in a way that actually works. So like Zhongxi, for example, which we played, which was really fun and really interesting, you know, depict the lives of Chinese immigrants living in the US during, is it like the 1940s, 50s sort of era. And like that's a really excellent way of, you know, displaying a period of history that I know nothing about and a culture that I don't really know much about. And it was really fascinating. Unlike Night Witches as well, the RPG about the Russian female Air Force, and it's like, this is really awesome and fascinating, and I think storytelling games and RPGs are a much better way at looking at historical periods and cultures than something like Medici, for example, which was fine, but again, a lot of these games are made not even with the setting in mind. They're just made with the mechanics first, and the setting is slapped on top.
And then given a dressing,
Yeah, which means that ultimately they're not really exploring the period that well anyway. I would say one period as a nerd, one period that I did study that is kind of fascinating is England during the 1700s, particularly during the periods of kind of rebellion of, you know, the working classes and essentially the repressed peasantry against the fat cat nobles, and how it kind of represented yet another, one of the most turbulent periods of political unrest this country has ever seen. And it's just fascinating in terms of seeing that from the perspective of the people who frankly had had enough, and, you know, they were seeing an incredibly corrupt system abusing them. It's a very interesting period of history that I would be interested to see something set in. Wheels, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, to further the point about 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, it's genuinely a really good tool for learning about cultures that you're not familiar with, because you have to place yourself as a character and like answer prompts based on how that character would live and react in this world. So like when you create your vampire, you choose any part of the world, any part of history that you want, and just plonk yourself down there and try and make a person. And to do that, you need to, like, you know, say I shove myself in Romania in the year 1100. Like, I need to learn, like, okay, well, what would a Romanian name be like in that period? What kind of jobs would I have? You know, what kind of people would I interact with? How would I spend my days? That kind of thing. And then as you progress, you're like, okay, well, all right, things are bad here. I need to move, I don't know, slightly eastern and find a different country, you know, different culture to integrate myself into and stuff like that. And you do just find yourself, like, Wikipediaing things and being like, oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Like, it is a really good sort of vessel for, like, learning about like cultures and periods of time that you're not really that familiar with, which hopefully we'll do something of on the stream later today.
I'm bricking it because Wheels has made the vampire, and he was like, okay, here's the deal, and it's the most Michael Whelan thing ever. Like, I feel like I'm going to be pretending to be Michael Whelan pretending to be a vampire. I've got so much Googling to do between now and the start of this stream, because honestly, it's I'm
not as fluent in ancient Greece as you might think I am.
Okay, but you're certainly more fluent than I am.
I'm just obsessed with it recently because of Hades and Aegon.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if it were the other way around, I'd be like, welcome to the period of Anglo-Saxon epic poetry. You are Grendel's cousin. Etc., etc.
Yeah, you got to do your homework, Johnny.
Yeah, Grendel didn't stalk, he didn't slither, he didn't insinuate his way up to Heorot. Grendel gongan me. Grendel walked.
Indeed.
There it is.
There you go. There you have it.
What a phrase to end our podcast on.
Yep. Have some of that.
Right.
Nice podcasting.
Have a bang on that.
Thank you for all your wonderful questions. Like we said earlier, you can send questions to info@dicebreaker.com, and maybe they'll be read out on the podcast.
Maybe. Who knows?
If
Not
you
even
whisper
we know.
your question into a glass bottle and throw it against the wall, it will also reach our ears. So
yeah,
just give that a go.
Yeah.
Also, please stop doing that. I can't sleep.
Yeah, if you could only do it between the hours of 9 to 5 GMT, Monday to Friday, that would be brilliant. Because I got asked a really, really interesting question about 4X strategy games the other day at about 3 in the morning, and I just couldn't get back to sleep.
I got that one as well. Jeez.
Yeah. Insightful question, though.
Indeed. Right. With that, would the video team like to tell me what's coming up on the old channel?
Yeah, all right. Well, in case you missed last week, hosting the triumphant return of Dungeon Breaker, that's still back. Dungeon Breaker.
It's still back.
Dungeon Breaker. So we'll watch Dungeon Breaker. Next week we've got a painting stream as per usual, and we've got some stuff in the works that we are currently unable to discuss. So mystery, but also painting on this podcast.
The stream, which would already have happened by the time this podcast comes out, people can go back though and watch it.
Absolutely can. It's not 1,000 years long, you'll be pleased to hear.
And the premiere of the next episode of Dungeon Breaker is happening at what time on Saturday, Johnny?
3 p.m. GMT.
It's when all of our things go live.
Yeah, you might see some of us in the chat for that. Up on the website, we have some exciting things. We have a very fascinating feature called A Natter of Life and Death, where one of our freelancers, Jamie Taylor, spoke to a parapsychologist.
Yeah.
About Mysterium,
cool.
Which is a very excellent game about ghosts.
Yes, it is.
So you can read that right now. There's also a list of the best tabletop RPGs without a GM, which is by Mr. Whelan.
Hello.
Yes. There is a video of that you can watch. Or you
Available now?
Yes.
On youtube.com/Dicebreaker.
Or you can read about it on the site.
As edited by Matt Jarvis.
Actually, I find that was me, so...
Oh! As edited by Alex Meehan. Incredible. Now that's special.
There is also a guide to painting miniatures on the site now. A step-by-step guide So if you want to get into miniatures painting and join perhaps these two next week.
These dweebs.
You can read that now and get some tips, hot tips. There's also a list of the best anime board games written by our resident anime expert, Mr. Matt Jarvis. And I believe there is a list coming out today, when you listen to this, of scary Magic the Gathering cards. Woo!
Nothing more scary than booster packs.
Just in time for Halloween. How wonderful. And with that, we will say our goodbyes. Thank you, Mr. Chiodini. Thank you, little wheels in the corner. I've been your host, Alex Meehan.
Ooh.
We'll be back next week with another episode. But until then, have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye.